Welcome to Ghostly.
Is the Chicago Water Tower haunted?
Ghostly is a podcast that comes out every other week. In each episode, we take a ghost story or paranormal event and look into its complete history. Rebecca then gives us evidence proving that the story is real, and my job is to debate those pieces of evidence and get you, the listener, prepared to vote on if it's real or not. If you haven't yet, please hit that subscribe button. And as always, we're your host. I'm Pat.
I'm Rebecca.
And with us today is our man in Chicago and my best friend, Mondo.
Hello.
Mondo, thanks so much for coming on the show and coming to Ghostly Studios.
Well, yeah, I'm back.
You're back.
Yay!
I wanted to do a little check-in with you before we start this all. Now, typically, you are our team middle person.
Okay.
And I just want to see if you've become more of a believer or more of a skeptic since the last time you've been on the show.
Where would you place yourself?
I'm still in the middle.
Still in the middle?
Yeah, it varies depending on the episode. You know?
Okay.
I think that's a lot of our listeners are, it depends,
Yeah.
right?
Well, that's how it should be, really, right?
Yeah.
It should be that
Be open.
you don't have a point of view before going in,
Yeah.
right? I mean, although mine's always skeptic.
And mine's always believer. But other than that,
But that's how it should be, yeah.
Yeah, case by case.
Yeah. We also have a special interview in this episode with Dion Mcgill of Off the Beaten podcast,
yeah.
which we've been wanting to get him on the show for the longest time.
Absolutely.
And I am super excited to play that interview for you guys. And I can't wait to hear everyone's thoughts on the Chicago Water Tower.
Yeah, we hope you listen, vote, all the good stuff.
Yeah. So in this episode, we continue our Most Haunted series with our Sweet Home Chicago. For the people that live in Chicago, if you ask them what symbolizes old Chicago more than anything else, well, the answer probably isn't going to be the water tower. I don't even know what I would say.
It's on the list.
But if you ask them what landmarks symbolize old Chicago, I think a lot of them would say the water tower.
Yeah.
When you're driving down there and you see the water tower, it is totally different than anything else you're going to see around there.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, it really looks like it's out of place in this big city to have this weird castle-looking building.
Right. That isn't a nightclub.
Yeah. Most Chicagoans know that the water tower is one of the buildings that survived the Great Chicago Fire. But most of us could not visualize what Chicago looked like before the Great Fire. And that's because Chicago got a rebirth after the fire, and the city planners took full advantage of this rebuild. They were able to turn the structure of the city into a better format. They used blocks. And it might not seem like anything, but if you've ever been to a big city like New York or Boston and drove around a little, you would realize quickly that Chicago has a certain organization and a structure to its streets. Would you guys agree with that?
Oh, well said.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The water tower is a symbol of how a city in ruins can hold on to its legacy and strengthen its core and become even better after a disaster.
Yeah. It's going to be so fun to talk about this. I
Absolutely.
can't wait to hear the history.
Yeah, well, I have a lot of it for you guys. So, so we do have some shout outs. There are two ways to get a shout out on Ghostly. The first way is to give us a review on Apple Podcast. You know, we always prefer those 5-star reviews, but we will read any and all reviews that we receive. And the second way is newer. It's to become a patron on Patreon. You just go to ghostlypodcast.com and click on Patreon in the menu bar. We have a few different tiers to choose from, varying from $1 to $10.
Yeah, we hope you check it out.
I think it's, pretty affordable, and I hope we give you enough for what you're paying for.
Yeah, we try hard.
So we do have both of those things. So I'm going to read a review that was on Apple Podcast, and it is from AR41097467!
Wow.
Yeah. That's
Okay.
what it is.
Arr, it's R.
Arr. It's a pirate. We have pirates listening to us now.
That's what it is.
And the review says amazing. That's the title of it.
That's a good title.
Yeah, a 5-star review. This is a short one, too. I work night shift and listen to you guys constantly. Very entertaining. Your show keeps my thoughts together in an otherwise chaotic night.
Wow, I wonder what they do. Right?
Maybe,
so
maybe
typically
they're Hitman.
Well, like typically a night shift, you think of like somebody just sitting around. Like I'm a security guard. It's slow business. What do you think? Chaotic night shift.
Yes.
Well, I mean, a pirate would have to work all night long, and it would be pretty chaotic, right?
Could be.
Yeah.
Could be. Counting the doubloons.
Yeah, there you go. And we do have some new patrons that we would like to welcome to Ghostly.
Yeah. All right. So first one is Shayla.
And the second one is this guy named Armando.
Interesting.
I wonder.
The same name as me.
It is. Yeah.
Interesting.
No, you're Mondo. Yeah, it's different, man.
That's
Totally
wonderful.
different. Yeah.
We also have Lori,
And we have Cindy,
Jessica,
Kevin,
and Jacob.
Jacob.
Ooh,
Wow.
that might be a hint for future.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's hear that listener mail.
All right. So we are concluding Mackenzie's story of the haunted doorbell. So last episode, when we were saying this story, talking about the story, her daughter's doorbell was going off on its own. Lots of haunted things happening in this house. There was a fire, and then across the street, and the smoke in the house.
So she had a doorbell at her room.
She did. The little girl had like a toy doorbell like outside her room.
I
I
don't think
wish
it's
I
toy, it
had
was like a
had that.
wireless
Well,
one.
like a wireless one, but like
Yeah.
meant as a toy. But wouldn't
Yeah, I
that have been
should've done
cool
that.
with your dang, but have been like, brother, you cannot come in my room without ringing that doorbell. Like that would have
And
been nice.
you had like a special code, for some people.
Oh, that we would have totally
Ring it 3
done.
times in a row.
When your neighbor comes over,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, yeah, you can come in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Okay, we totally would have done that. Anyways, but let's continue on because more haunted things are happening.
Okay.
All right. So continue. Last week, Mackenzie says, I stayed up later than anyone else, which is rare, partially because being alone downstairs gives me the creeps. I was getting ready to go to bed and was in the dining room shutting off the lights and walked into the first cold spot I have ever felt. I've always thought, watching ghost shows, wow, they caught a chill. And that's evidence? Now I know the difference. It was like I hit a brick wall of just cold air, colder than anywhere else in the room. But being a rational skeptic, I was like, all right, who knows? And continued with shutting off lights and locking doors. But just a few minutes later, I'm in the living room and, this is in all caps, everybody, I felt someone touch my thigh.
Whoa.
There was nothing around me. It felt as if I had walked up against someone standing there, someone solid. So I ran upstairs and went to bed. Much to my surprise, my husband woke up the next morning and told me he had woken up in the middle of the night because he felt someone leaning on his legs. He said he sat up and could visibly see that it looked as if 2 hands had made indents in the blanket over his calves. He knows I'm already pretty freaked out and I don't sleep well, so he waited to tell me until daylight. We have moved my 7-year-old out of the bedroom she was in. Remember, she had the doorbell thing. We are preparing to be foster parents and are renovating that room to be a gender-neutral room. It now sits empty, so they're giving... Okay, all right. It was the servants' quarters. Okay, this room has been through a lot. I know this because it has its own sink, and it's the smallest room in the house.
Wait, the daughter had a doorbell to her room and a sink in her room.
Wow. And it was like...
I'm so jealous.
That,
now.
yeah, and it probably was nice and secluded away from the parents.
Oh, my God.
Man. All right. And it has... yeah. And it has a private staircase that leads from the bedroom to the kitchen.
Oh, my God.
Just the other day, I heard the doorbell ring again. So no one's living there. It's totally cleared out. The doorbell starts ringing again. All right. Every second I spend in my house now, I am just waiting to see what will happen next. It's exciting and also a little bit scary. As bold as the experiences have been, I don't feel threatened or in danger in any way. And although they tried to destroy my pagan wheel of the year calendar, I'll cite religious differences and forgive them for their intolerance. I mean, 1910 was a different time.
So true. Well, thank you so much, Mackenzie. I've really enjoyed your 3-part story. And wow, I'm so jealous. I want a doorbell for my room now and a sink in my room.
Yeah. And don't you miss having a pagan wheel of the year calendar?
I actually do. Those were really cool.
That sounds
calendars.
really pretty. Yeah.
It was just like a regular calendar, but it had a lot of like information, and it would have the moon cycles and stuff.
I was just thinking that like that would be nice to have, and the different names of the moons probably, and all of that stuff. Yep. All right, well maybe I'll look into it for myself. All right, well we would love to hear your stories. They can be short, they can be long. We love them. Please send them our way. You can email us at info@ghostlypodcast.com.
Yeah.
What else can they do?
And you can also, one of our favorite ways to do this is that you could actually send us some snail mail.
Yeah.
We're P.O. Box number 264 in Geneva, Illinois, 60134. And you're not going to have written that down. So go to the website, ghostlypodcast.com, and go to the bottom in the footer. You'll see the address.
Absolutely. And there's also a contact us form on ghostlypodcast.com. Yeah. If you don't want to like go to your email and just go to the contact us form, fill it out, tell us your story. We'd love to hear it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we should skip the polls in this episode since Mondo's here.
No, it's a long episode, but we need to get to those polls. It's always important.
Frickin' polls.
So, Mondo, and I don't know if you listened to the episode, it's okay either way, but if you, House of Death, thoughts, would you say haunted or not? Even just from the name?
Just from the name. Okay. House of Death, I would say haunted.
Okay. All right. Well, the listeners agree with you. Yes, 61%.
Oh, actually, you know what? I got that reversed.
Did you?
So sorry. It is no, 61.1%. And yes, 38.9. I am so sorry, Rebecca.
He's got a little smirkiness on his face, listeners, so I'm guessing he did that on purpose.
Maybe just a little bit.
Well, here's the thing. The House of Death, it turns out, didn't have a whole lot of death associated with it. No.
Yeah.
It was a little weird, but the rating then...
the overall rating is a 4.67.
So pretty close to haunted.
I mean, that's not like crazy low.
No, it isn't. Remember, our range is typically more around a 5. You know what I mean? It just goes a little bit over or a little bit under. It rarely gets to the extremes of the 0 and 10.
The believers did definitely vote very high in that one when they did believe. So but you can go to vote on this episode right now by going to ghostlypodcast.com, clicking on the polls in the menu button, and right there you'll see the polls.
Though I actually recommend listening to the episode first, though. I mean, you could go vote if you're real strong. If you're like, no, I got it. I know.
If you're really skeptical, just go vote right now.
If you're strongly believing,
don't vote.
Go vote right now.
Don't vote.
Or if you're like Mondo,
they
should listen to the episode first, right?
Yes. Don't base it on the name alone.
All right. I think it's time for a ghost story.
It's time for a spooky tale from Rebecca.
All right. You can still smell the smoke, the burning, the water, the soot. It's everywhere. There's no escaping it, it seems. No matter how much we clean and clear things up. When you breathe in, it burns your throat, and there's no amount of coughing that seems to clear it out of your body. Yesterday, we went to see what it looked like closer to the lake. Mama had told us to work on salvaging from the pile of rubble that used to be our building, but Pete and I just needed to see if anything had survived. Tony told us there was one building by the lake that did, the water tower. This was a newer building that I saw once when Papa took me downtown to help at a new construction site. I'm sure that place didn't make it. I mean, all wood, just like everything else. But the water tower was stone, so I'm thinking maybe Tony wasn't lying this time. When we got there, it was a sight to see. 3 weeks after the fire, and everything else was flattened. But there was this tower standing up, proud. It was saying, I survived. We will survive. I had to see inside. I mean, it was not easy to find too much of inside lately. Pete was scared, but I told him he needed to grow up and face his fears. Took a little daring, but we managed to get in without anyone seeing us. I wanted to get all the way to the top. I wanted to see what the city looked like from above. How bad was it? How far did it reach? When we got to the top, there was a door. I opened it slowly. There was damage in here, even if it was still standing. To my surprise, there was a man standing inside the room. He had his back to us, and he was looking out the window. I was nervous that we might get in trouble, but he wasn't dressed as a cop, so I thought, well, he's probably all right. Just someone like us that needs to see this devastation. As we got closer to the windows, he slowly turned around. His clothes were wet and ripped and had soot on them. Everyone's did, but his looked fresh, and his face was ashen. I wondered if he had even bathed since the fire. He just stared at us with sad eyes. I said, "Hello?" and asked him what he could see out the window. He just stared at us. That's when I noticed a red mark going all the way around his neck. I put my hand up to protect Pete and just pushed him back. We walked backwards through the door, and I told Pete we were getting out of there. I don't know what happened to that man, but he didn't seem safe. When we got back down to the street, I looked up at the window. I saw a shadowy figure standing there. Just then, a man came up to us yelling, "What are you kids doing? Did I just see you leave that building? It's not safe in there. Don't you ever do that again." "What?" I asked. "We just saw someone up there on the top floor. Can't you see him in the window?" But when we looked, he was gone. And the man told us, "That's impossible. I just did a full tour of that building a half hour ago and no one was in there. There's no way I wouldn't have seen or heard him. I heard you well enough." I don't know who that lost soul was. I hope he finds peace. I hope the whole city does.
Wow. So what is that based off of?
It's based on the most popular ghost story associated with the water tower.
Oh, okay.
So we will definitely hear more about that later.
Nice.
What did you think of the story there?
Oh, it was good. He wasted no time. I'm haunting it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Right away.
You know,
Yeah, you gotta
right
haunt.
there. No.
If you're going to haunt, do it right away.
Yeah.
If you're going to linger, you're going to linger.
Don't take like a little vacation because you might not return to go haunt, you know? All right, so we're going to take a break, but before that break, we're going to play you some interviews that we did. The first one is with Dion Mcgill from Off the Beaten podcast. And so his podcast is incredible, and he gives a voice to Chicago.
Yes, that is his podcast. And
in a more proper
him.
voice than me, you know? I mean, even though he's from the South Side too, he doesn't sound like he's from the South Side.
No.
He
Yeah,
sounds-
you've more of a South Side accent, I think, than he does.
Even
yeah.
Mondo does, and Mondo grew up a lot on the North Side, so I don't understand it.
Happened somewhere when I was a teenager.
There you go. Yeah. But okay, so we're gonna play Dion's first, and then we are going to play Nick Mataragas. Told us something in his interview that he's going to do for Ghostly X that we want to play for you guys. And then Bob had something to say about the water tower as well. So we're going to play all three of those to get you guys ready for the history.
All right.
And when we return, we're going to have the history then.
All right, everybody. We are here with Dion Mcgill from Off the Beaten podcast. And I am so excited to finally have him on Ghostly. We met a couple years ago and have been trying to figure out a way to make this happen. So I'm excited. Welcome to Ghostly. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you guys for having me. It's so great to just to connect with other podcasters in Chicago. At least the Chicagoland area.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I have to admit we're fangirling a little bit over here. So we're big fans of Off the Beaten and everything that you've done. So why don't you tell us about what is the show?
Man, if I had the answer to that, no. No, thank you guys so much. Yeah, so Off the Beam podcast is a podcast really about just Chicago and its people. It's I mean, still a young podcast, so it's kind of constantly evolving. But I just it comes out of two things. I'm a fan of a gentleman named Wes Watson. He's a big YouTube personality, and he always talks about like acquiring what you admire. And why would you not do that? And I've been a podcast fan since like before it was cool, like everyone does that. But when podcast was still that thing where people were like, what's a podcast? Even struggle to explain it. Like, it's a radio show that you could download. So,
when do you go live? Yeah.
Yeah. When? Oh, we still get that. Yes. Yeah. When can I listen to you?
Oh, yeah. I'm sure. And then we had a president who just kind of whenever Chicago was in any kind of discourse, it was very negative. And Chicago is not a perfect city, but there's so many amazing. I'm born here in the city. I was raised on the south side of the city.
South side.
And there's so many great things here that never really enters discourse ever. I feel like, so I just really wanted to find a way to just kind of show people the cool, because what makes the city? We always say it's a city of neighborhoods, but to me, it's always a city of personalities. And definitely. I'm like, if you could just get some of these personalities just to talk about themselves and their, what they're doing and their views, that is compelling. Because when I meet people all the time, much like yourselves, I'm like, oh, these guys are cool.
But I mean, I love
guys for an hour or two.
I love that you give Chicago a voice,
Yes, and that's really was the goal, just to kind of start collecting story. I'm actually a former history teacher, so I'm a historian by education.
Nice.
And I didn't really actually. This is a lie. I actually started the idea of a podcast to actually be an oral history of Chicago Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Whoa, that's pretty specific there.
It was going to be and that's if you're familiar, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, UFC without the punching and kicking, but it's a very small community, and there's a handful of guys, mostly because women didn't even train that back then. At least the gyms that they were at, there's a handful of men in the city who started training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu almost 25 years ago. And they have the most amazing stories. So the idea was just to collect those stories and then start branching out based on the stories they would tell me. They'd mention somebody and I'll pull that person in to get another piece of the history. And then the podcast just evolved to Chicago culture and life.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I know when I met you at C2E2 a few years ago before when we could be in person with people. And I remember when you told me about your show, and I thought, oh my gosh, well, my podcast partner, Pat, is a South Sider and loves to tell stories about the city. And I was so excited for the two of you to meet. And then, the world changed. So things didn't go the way that we had hoped. But yeah, I think that's one of our big things is, we talk a lot about the city. We talk about ghost things that happen all over the world. But we always come back to Chicago as often as we can.
Sweet home Chicago.
And, and I think that's one of the reasons I was so excited to have you on is to have, a Chicago voice to help us kind of understand this city that we love. And I think people maybe that aren't from here or haven't been here for a long time, maybe don't always have the full impression of the city.
Yeah.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, well, no, that's perfect.
I mean, I would imagine people turning on the news in some other city or state or wherever they're at, or even the world, and all they hear about Chicago is gun violence. Right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, so is that should people really be worried about something like that when they go to Chicago to visit?
It's funny. I had coffee with a friend this morning. So coincidentally, I used to work for the Illinois Council Against Handgun Violence.
Wow. Wow. You are the person to talk to for this then. Wow.
I ran their education program. It's really funny you bring that question up. But me and a friend, we're both going to Paris in February. It's a business trip, like work related. And I was like telling her, because, you know, when I think about going to another place, I'm thinking food, I'm thinking music, I'm thinking like just the culture and environment, you know, like I don't think of museums ever. And I was looking up, because I'm fascinated by this topic of, if you're familiar with drill music, which is a style of hip hop that started on the South Side of Chicago.
Oh.
It has proliferated around the world. You can listen to Irish drill. New Zealand has a huge drill community. But I was looking up this kind of like specific style of hip hop in France, and the videos I was watching were scary. It was like guns and guys with ski masks.
Oh, man.
And the translations at the bottom, it's like, we're going to shoot you if you come here. Don't come here.
Ooh.
Oh, my.
It's like, who would ever go to Paris?
I was just going to say.
But that's the exact same way that people look at Chicago, right?
They do, yeah.
Who would ever go there? And it's just one of those things that, unfortunately, that's so much of what's projected out, you know. Whereas I grew, you know, if anyone looked at me, I never really say publicly where I work, just because I don't ever really want to link it to my personal life. But I work for a huge hospital in the city. I'm a relatively professional person. I was born and raised on the south side of the city. I've never been shot. I've never been mugged, you know. But I've traveled. So I've lived in Germany. I've lived in Alaska. You know, I spent some time in the Middle East with the military. But like any place, if I was to go to New York tomorrow and it was like 10 o'clock at night, you're not going to, you know, I'm going to try to familiarize myself. Like, are there areas of the city where, you know, risk of things happening can get a little higher? And I think that's like anywhere, right? Not to get deep into the conversation of the history of Chicago, but Chicago has a lot of problems that are historically grounded and driven, and, you know, you talk about systemic issues. So there are areas of the city in Chicago you're not going to find me after 10 o'clock, right?
Yeah.
It's not my neighborhood. I don't live here. I don't know the people here. You know?
Right.
True.
So when I see some guys, you know, just hanging out, and they're like, "Hey, who are you?" I'm like, "Oh, this is not my neighborhood. Hey, I'm
You know, I find whenever confronted with something like that, is I always ask questions. You know, so if like I find myself in a neighborhood that I'm not familiar with, and these people that kind of look thuggish to me might come up to me, I will ask them a question before they have a chance to do anything. And that just
absolutely.
Yeah, because I mean, people want to talk no matter who you are.
I get a really good point to this. I grew up on the south side of the city, right?
Same here.
Growing up on the south side, I was always told, don't go to the west side. I was also, they don't like Southsiders. You're going to have issues, you know, so on and so forth. I did not. And I'm ashamed to admit this now. I did not go to the west side of the city. And the city is only 20 miles long until I was in my late 20s. I was about 27, 28 for the first time. And I actually did some volunteer work over there. And it's kind of the same thing. Like, I'd been told my entire life, don't go there because of, you're going to have issues.
Yeah.
And when I got there, I was like, oh, it's different in a lot of ways, you know, than from the South Side, even being the same city. But people were, you know, asking questions, you know, meeting people. It really wasn't that much different. I had been fooled, right, based on the projections to believe that one thing was true in reality. I mean, people are people. And, you know, does crime happen in the city? Oh, absolutely. But if you're visiting, you know, I always tell people, if you don't go south to the south side and visit some of the restaurants there, you know, we've got great vegan restaurants, great cafes. You know, if you don't visit that stuff, you're missing a lot of the flavor of the city.
Yeah.
You know,
and if you go during the day, I mean, I don't think you have anything to worry about. I
was going to say, but I'm not going to be hanging out at 10 o'clock. I don't hang out anywhere in the city at 10 o'clock at night, really. I'm going somewhere, but I'm not just hanging out anywhere.
No.
So just tell people, you know, just be smart in an urban environment, you know, and
absolutely.
So yeah.
Well, and I was going to say too, you know, so I want to, you know, I love talking about the city as a whole, and it's, I think a lot of times we think of South Side and West Side of Chicago as like the bad area. So it's nice to hear about how that's not the case. But new lately, Michigan Avenue has been popping up. as like dangerous place to be. And the Chicago Water Tower, which we are talking about in this episode, is smack in the middle of,
absolutely.
this area that is now like dangerous and stores are leaving and like all of these things. So I was wondering what your thoughts are, because I know you had mentioned to me that you work kind of in that area and just being in the city. So what are your thoughts of I
don't know how much time you guys spend like in Streeterville. To me, Streeterville's always been like a little like, using terms like shady, it's always been a shady area to me. If you go over in Streeterville, there's not many it's something about it. It's dark. There's not tons of street lights. And I mean, part of that because you have hospitals in that area, and I think they don't want a lot of external lighting to the hospital. But it's always been a bit of a little dark, shady area, like not a place where I'm going to be spending a lot of social time, and so it's interesting, unfortunately just the history of the city. Now we're starting to see these shifts in like crime and violence, and crime anywhere is sad, and I just hope that we're able to learn lessons, as a city and just move forward. Because I spend so much time on Michigan Avenue, just even personally, just walking around, just enjoying, the stores and the windows and the ambiance.
Yeah, it's breathtaking. It's so beautiful.
Yes. And it's just unfortunate that some of the things in Chicago that have been neglected for so long, now they're starting to reflect in Michigan Avenue, in Lincoln Park, those areas that necessarily didn't have to worry about those issues. And it's very unfortunate. It's just, it's just like, oh,
I know. Well, because it's, if you think about it, for people, if you haven't been to Chicago, downtown is, well, people think of downtown as very different things, but let's just say the Loop, like the main downtown area is where people work.
Yeah, there's not many people that live in the Loop.
Right. There's a few restaurants and some theaters.
Yeah.
But in general, like at night or if you want to go shopping or if you're a tourist, you're not going to spend a ton of time right in the Loop. I mean, you're probably going to see things, but the shops and like the I don't know, the restaurants and the nightclubs and all of that is all going to be more Magnificent Mile and River North and all of that area up there. And so I want people to know that it's, not that there haven't been some incidents, but overall it is a beautiful place.
Yeah.
And that's also, I mean, it is also, I think one of the reasons it is what it is, right? It's a protected area, generally speaking. Right. It's very
revenue generating area.
Yeah. It's the heart of the city in a lot of ways, for a lot of reasons. And I was actually just down there. Tedeschi Trucks Band is doing a residency in the Chicago Theater.
Oh my God, that is one of Pat's favorite bands.
Yeah. Man, you're speaking my language now.
And I listened to them actually for the first time ever. I never heard them. And I was like, oh, they're doing a residency. I should listen and see what the music's like. Loved it. But like, so I was, just in that area, and like, there is an abundance of police officers and things there to, it's a protected area. Yeah. And so, so the city's going to deal with that issue, as they see fit to keep the revenues rolling.
Right. I mean, unfortunately, they may not deal with it at a systemic level,
no, definitely.
in a general, trying to help it. So now, have you been inside the water tower? I mean, it's not something that like people generally just do. I mean, I have a vague memory of maybe of a tour as a kid. I've certainly gone by it many times, but I was curious if you ever had the opportunity.
So it's funny. I've probably done everything there except for being inside, because they have those stairs there. Like I've eaten lunch on those stairs.
Yeah.
For people who geocache, that's actually a virtual geocache location.
I didn't even think about that. Oh, wow.
Yeah. And actually, I think I mentioned this when we were emailing. I was supposed to go to my first performance at the Looking Glass Theater, which is the pump station across the street. I think that's what they call it.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, that was December, and it was canceled.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I've hung out there because they have those benches there.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, if you could like paint a picture for the listener of like that area of where it is, because it is maybe not what people are picturing. I don't know.
Yeah, the Water Tower place is in a little square it's almost like it's Michigan Avenue runs north to south, and it's a block that's kind of embedded in around, surrounded by the surrounding block. It's kind of like a cutout that pushes into the blocks, right? And there's a courtyard there, and it has these walkways, so you can kind of go every which way, and there's benches that line the walkways, and they have a fountain there that they turn into a tree in the winter. Like the fountain's beautiful. Do not have food out there because the birds go crazy. I had a bird land on my shoulder once eating a donut.
Oh my God.
Like,
are you in Mary Poppins? What's happening?
I was like, this is not happening, because there's so many birds right there, and people go out and feed the birds normally.
Yeah,
they're just kind of like conditioned to go get food now, and so and across the street is the pump station. They're both this kind of like beautiful, like yellowish or creamish limestone.
Yeah, limestone. Yeah, the Lamont limestone.
Yes. There used to be the Hershey store there, but that closed. I'm not sure
I loved the Hershey store. That was
I was ever in the Hershey store.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, the Hershey store was amazing.
Mm-hmm. And then, the big Borders was right by there too,
Borders
right?
was there,
yeah.
And Ghirardelli was there too, but it moved up the street.
Oh,
okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's stores there. Water Tower Place is right. What they call a kitty corner, like diagonally.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, if you could describe that, because I think a lot of people might get those mixed up. There's Water Tower and Water Tower Place.
Yeah, so the Water Tower was the actual pumping station and for the city where the water would kind of pump through. Right, but Water Tower Place is a mall.
Yes, it is. I've stayed in that. There's a hotel in there. I've stayed in that hotel.
Wow.
Yes,
yeah,
beautiful. And it's a gorgeous place, and it's I don't know if that's the second or third tallest building in the city now, but huge. Has a huge food court, tons of stores. All inside is all glass. There's a Lego store there that's beautiful.
Yeah. So again, like it is. I mean, and the whole area is a mall, and then there's a mall in the mall.
Oh yes.
Like that's when you think of Magnificent. The reason they talk about it is like it is retail central. I mean, I guess maybe Fifth Avenue in New York maybe is kind of
would be the equivalent. Oh, absolutely.
What, Rodeo Drive in California?
Oh, maybe. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, exactly. Yes, the big, real expensive stores.
Yeah.
Yes, that's where they would be.
It's actually funny. There's a store. There's a Cartier store. And I was joking. I have a friend, a dear friend of mine. I would joke with her. I'm like, I've never been in a Cartier store. That's kind of like one of my dreams. But I'd never gone inside because I feel like they could smell money. And they're just going to like look at me and be like, you can't afford. Let's be real. And she was like, you know what? We're going to go in there. And I was like, yeah. She's like, yeah, we're going to go. And the next time I walked by, there literally was a sign that said appointment only. I'm like, oh, no, we're not going.
They knew you were coming, and then
they knew I was coming. But it's that era, Cartier and Brooks Brothers and all these different,
Yeah, I've never felt comfortable to go in any of those stores, but I have walked by them.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So going back to, we were talking about crime, and
yes.
So I have a story that I in my previous marriage, my wife at the time was a photographer, and she was not like a photographer that was very well prepared. She would bring every piece of gear that she had to everything that she did.
Well, or maybe she was just being, letting herself be open creatively. Let's not insult the past wives.
So anyways, she had all of her camera equipment, And of course, I was with her, so I was the one carrying all of her camera equipment. We're talking thousands of dollars here. I mean, photography is expensive, right? It is super expensive.
Oh, absolutely.
And we were by the water tower, and I was sitting on one of those benches over there with her camera bag that, as I said, thousands of dollars. And I had always been told to watch yourself around the water tower, that the water tower, that there's a lot of crime around there, you know? And I was like, okay, I'm going to hold on to this bag because someone could just run up and grab this bag and steal thousands of dollars from me, you know? So I'm holding it very protectively.
What time of day are we talking?
Night. We're talking like 8 o'clock at night.
Okay. Not 10 o'clock.
No.
Dion, it's okay. Yeah. It was 8 o'clock, but still.
Yeah. So I was sitting there, and to the right of me came a homeless woman. She was an elderly black homeless woman, and she sat next to me, and she seemed, pretty sweet. But of course she's homeless, so I'm grabbing my bag a little tighter and stuff. And then to the left of me, there's another homeless person that comes and sits down next to me, and this one happens to be a younger white homeless male. And so I'm like, oh my God, what the heck is going on here? They're trying to corner me in this situation, and they're going to steal this camera. And so I'm holding tighter and tighter, and they were chit-chatting over me. So like, their heads were like over my lap almost,
Right.
And the guy says to the woman, he said, did you get any money today? And she said, no, I wasn't able to get anything. And he said, wow, well, yeah, it was a pretty good day for me. And he took out all the money in his pocket, and he gave her half of the money. And to me, I was blown away by this. First of all, that, every time I've been on heightened alert for crime to happen, it doesn't. And I realized the humanity in people then. And I just thought it was so inspiring that these homeless people are sharing everything that they have, not to mention that they are different races, they're different ages, they're different everything. Like these two people, besides being homeless, look like they had nothing in common at all. But yet they're willing to share everything that they have with another person.
Yeah.
And,
Thank you for sharing that story. I think we all need those reminders that I always say people are people, right?
Yeah.
If we were willing to work together and rely on each other, then it's just everyone's more fulfilled, right?
Absolutely.
Whether it's by meeting what someone needs or just, oh man, I'm a better person because I'm helping someone else. And like we were chatting before we started recording, I lived in Alaska for 2 years. And one thing, I lived in a small town, very rural, like 1,200 people was the census number. But one thing I learned about living in that environment, because it's interior Alaska, it can get extremely cold. In that environment, everyone relies on everyone. And I also found that no one ever really was openly hostile to anyone, even if you didn't like a person, because you never knew when you might have to rely on that person. And it created this kind of weird. It was like you never, even if you're like, oh, I know that guy doesn't like that guy, but they'll shake hands and be friendly in public because you never know when you have to lean on this person, right? And it could be a life or death situation, literally.
Sure.
And, if we learn to just kind of rely on each other more and trust each other more and work together more, so thank you for sharing that story, man.
It was really touching to me. And this is an ongoing pattern in my life, that when I've been overly protective, that I've seen the best in humanity come out, and it's inspiring.
Yeah, and especially if you live in an urban area, I think we all have those moments. we kind of like might be expecting the worst, in people or a situation. And then when it works out, you're like, oh, man. Then, I'm like, I feel like a jerk. And then,
yeah, exactly.
But like it does help, it uplifts, and it does kind of reaffirms your belief. Like, man, people can be good, I think we don't even acknowledge that sometimes. We just
Yeah.
So,
Well, I think, I do
absolutely.
think it, and this isn't to say that you shouldn't, be aware of your surroundings or take precautions, all of those things. But I think it does, that to go, like you said, overly protective. You know what I mean? If you let those stories kind of creep into your mind. And here's the thing, I'm someone who has experienced crime in the city. Like when I lived there, it's funny, I had a friend who lived in the South Side, went there all the time. Never had anything happen to me. Where I had something happen to me was Lincoln Park, where people have money, so like that was, whatever. But I mean, it was okay. No one got hurt, whatever. But, and a few other times, but I think, there's lessons to be learned about being safe. But again, those are so the minority of the experiences.
Yeah.
That
Yes.
I have had living in the city, going to the city, that, I'm not worried about going. You know what I mean? Like, just because I have had a few things happen doesn't deter me at all, from it.
Absolutely. And it's funny you say that. It's something that came to mind. I have a friend, a lovely young lady I used to work with. Her name's Colleen. And I remember years ago, we were actually teachers together. She was mugged one day, actually, in her neighborhood in the city. And I remember after that, just like talking with her, and it always amazed me. Did not shake her ability to love and embrace the city like one little bit. It was like, it was one of those moments, she was like, yeah, it happened. And it was unfortunate, she goes,
people are struggling, but
yeah. And she said, you bounce back. And I just remember always like reflecting upon that, like, man, she could do that. Then I can keep faith because, that's real. And that's cool. So absolutely. Yeah.
So have you ever, we didn't even ask you, are you a believer or are you a skeptic?
Oh, I think I'm perfectly in the middle.
Okay.
I think, which is strange. I've had a few experiences that definitely make me believe there are things that occur that cannot be explained. So I guess that would make me a believer, right? But I don't think that every time things happen that people are like, that's a ghost. I'm like, wait, hold on. Maybe the ripple might have had something to do with it. Like, let's just think about this for a minute. But yeah, absolutely. So I'm a sometimer, I suppose. But
team in the middle.
Tweenie.
No, tween. No, a grown man should not say, I'm team tween. No, you should not say that. That's not okay.
I won't say that.
Team in the middle.
Rebecca doesn't like that term at all. So.
Pat's trying to get me in trouble. I won't say
that. I am trying to save you guys. That's all I'm saying. But no, I think actually a lot of our listeners feel the same. Yeah. That's why we don't just have the same vote every week on our stories. It's like we definitely go back and forth as far as, where people land for each of the stories.
So have you ever felt anything, had any experiences over at the water tower or in that area?
At that hour specifically, no. I feel like I'm one of those people that even if I did, I wouldn't even necessarily recognize it in the moment. If that makes sense. Like I would kind of shake it off, like, okay. Okay, they did no.
Yeah.
That didn't really happen. It just happened. Cause I just, going through the city, like there's so many areas of the city I feel like that are, because of the history of the city and the that there are always possibilities for spirits or feelings, connections. So like off the top of my head, I want to say no, but I'm like one of those people who would just like, that didn't just happen. I'm good. And keep it pushing anyway. So yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a good way to avoid paranormal activity, I think, is just to
create
not
a mental
see
block.
It. Yes,
that's
exactly.
What it is.
Just sure. hair standing up. You're like, wait a minute. And you're like, it just happened. Oh, okay.
Well, how can they find you, Dion?
Yeah, if they want to hear more.
Oh, that's so kind of you guys. If you go, I have a website. It's just www.offthebeatenpodcast.com. And then I'm on social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I'm all about all those, and all the major podcast listening platforms. And I guess I don't know when you're going to release this episode on February 1st. Actually, I won't be on Spotify, but I'll be everywhere else. So yeah.
Oh, you're going off Spotify. Wow.
And if you know how much I love Spotify, you'll know how heavy that's a major thing for me. I actually canceled my membership this morning. That was kicking this. I feel like I was kicking and screaming with myself, and then yeah.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I understand. I understand.
That's all right.
But yeah, no, this is coming out. This will be coming out next week, or this coming week, I guess I should say. We're on Saturday, so I guess technically I don't know. Yeah. It depends when you start your week, but anyways, it's coming out soon. So, but yeah, your website is great. I love it. It's got so much information on it.
Off the Beaten. That is the most awesome name for a podcast.
Thank you so much. I always think of myself as like I'm just an out of the box dude, and and I kind of always have been. So years ago I had a blog. Then I used the name Off the Beaten Path. And it's just really perfect for my personality.
Sure.
Very similar. Like I'm going to Paris, and I'm trying to go every place that no one else is going. Like where can I go and get off the, and so it's for me, just Off the Beaten is a perfect kind of just way to phrase what I like to do. So yeah.
Awesome.
Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on Ghostly and giving us an idea of what that area is like.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Anyone who's never been there, definitely check it out. I mean, it's historic, it's one of the few buildings that existed through that fire. It's beautiful. There are windows that you can see, you can see in it what's inside.
That's what I remember. Yes.
Yes. And so it's a beautiful place to visit.
Yeah.
There's no boredom in that area by any means.
Nope. Anything you want to do.
Yeah. Anything you want to do.
Actually, Rebecca, you would, since he said it was beautiful, Oscar Wilde would not agree with him on that.
No, that's true. I did see that quote. Oscar Wilde thought it was very, very ugly. I don't remember his exact quote, but it was definitely not on his list of places.
I think he said like the castleization or something like that.
Yeah,
or
something like that. It does have that castle-y feel.
To draw, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Art Cable House.
Yeah.
Which is right next to the Treehouse Museum.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was the architecture in that area, right? Everything looked like castle. Because I always look at the Art Cable House, which externally looks the way it did in the early 1900s. I forget when it was constructed, but it might have been 1925 maybe. I feel like it's a little older, but it looks like a castle. It's just like,
it does. Yeah. He gave his first lecture in Chicago, coming up February 13th, 1882. And he would include local references. And so he took the opportunity to comment on the water tower, and he called it a castellated monstrosity with pepper boxes stuck all over it.
That's a perfect description. I'm stealing that, and that's the way I'm going to describe it for now.
And the Tribune said, "Hey, you wounded the pride of Chicagoans," and he was like, "Okay, I know." He's like, "I can't help that."
He's like, peace out.
Right.
He's like, okay,
that's when he dropped the mic.
Okay, if you build a water tower, why don't you build it for water and make a simple structure out of it instead of building it like a castle where one expects to see mailed knights peering out of every part? It seems a shame to me that the citizens of Chicago have spent so much money on buildings with such unsatisfactory result from an architectural point of view. Your city looks positively too dreary for me. Wow.
That is awesome.
But actually, he went on to say how much he loves Chicago and stuff like that in a later one. So
well,
whatever.
we certainly rebuilt it and did
Yeah.
better, I think.
Yeah.
Much as I would encourage my listeners, he got off the beaten path. He was
Yeah,
like,
right.
let me get up out of here.
Did.
Let me get out of here. Because, I mean, Chicago's the home of the bungalow house, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, he got away from, there. He's like, oh, this is a cool city.
Yeah,
So take that tip, everybody.
Absolutely.
there you go.
Well, again, thank you so much, Dion. We really appreciate you coming on, and I look forward to even more episodes with you in it.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And we got to have you guys on OTBP for sure.
Can't wait.
And we'll
Can't
definitely
wait.
talk more about the city. So
I'd love to talk
we'll make that
Southside with
happen.
you.
Yes, we'll make it happen.
Maybe a little Rickabenny's or something.
Oh my God, behave yourself. I can't do that no more. But yes, good spot.
All right. Well, thank you.
That's awesome. But yeah, no, I've never been inside the water tower. I've been by it a bunch of times, obviously.
Yeah. What are your thoughts of the building itself?
I always wonder, I'm like, it's so different than what you would expect a water tower to look like.
Yeah.
It's a cool building, and it survived the Chicago fire, which is pretty awesome. So did the pump house across the street from it. But
I mean, it's survived-ish. Because, yeah, so the way that it looks today is very similar to the way it was constructed, but there is a time when it was in a very, very bad condition.
Okay.
And they were actually planning on moving it because it was an eyesore. And they couldn't move it because it was actually in like ruins almost.
Wow.
And if they would have moved it, it would have destroyed the entire building. And they wouldn't have had a building. They would have had to reconstruct the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So they fixed it.
When were they talking about moving it?
After it was only in use for a few years.
I mean, well, it doesn't like when we think of a water tower, we think of like the big towering thing with like the
Yes.
bulbous top
Yeah.
of some
Yes.
sort. And that's not what this is. It kind of just looks like a tower.
Well, it wasn't really that kind of water tower.
Right.
It was more for filtration and stuff.
Right. Well, it's kind of the precursor to some of the hollow buildings in downtown Chicago.
Yeah.
You know about those, right? Where it's all just utilities.
Yeah.
So some of the buildings in the loop don't actually have anything in them.
Really?
They're just pipes or wires or conduits or whatever. It's all the infrastructure you need to have for the downtown Chicago to work. And so it's literally like ComEd owns the building, or the water, city waterworks or whatever own the building, and inside is just the stuff they need for the utility.
Wow, I had no
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
But that, that kind of makes sense. I mean, Chicago, it's interesting because it is very planned,
Mhm.
compared to other cities just because of the fire.
Right.
They were able to plan it, which is why we have alleys and we don't have to put our garbage out.
One of my
In the
favorite
front.
things is when I was a tour guide, people were like, Chicago is so clean. I'm like, that's because we have alleys. They're like, what? I'm like, because after the fire, we redesigned the city. And so
Yeah,
we
walk
have
down the
alleys.
alley and say it's clean.
Well, but that's the point. Like
Yeah.
in New York or anywhere on the East Coast or even like New Orleans, like the garbage goes on the curb.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't have that in Chicago.
Yeah. And I guess now we also don't have to see a lot of the other internal stuff because it's
Right.
in these buildings.
Right.
Yeah.
I had
And
no
also,
idea.
All the stuff that happens in the undercity, like
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but the water tower was made as like a hub
Mhm.
because they actually so people were dying from drinking the water in Chicago.
Yeah, because the drinking water was coming in from the river was pumping out into the lake full of poop.
And I just wanted to know, have you ever heard that it is supposedly haunted?
No,
Okay, you've been to the Chicago Water Tower.
I have.
Have you ever been inside?
Yes.
Okay, what
Did you feel anything
not
while you were
the,
there?
Not the mall.
Okay, that's what I thought. You
Oh,
were
I was just
getting
saying, no, not the mall.
Yeah, I'm
That's
talking
we were
the
just
actual
talking
water
about
tower.
that.
at. Oh, the
Yeah.
other. So the
The
actual.
actual
Yeah.
water tower itself.
I have been there too. I thought you meant the mall. I'm
Yeah.
like, no,
No, not Water Tower Place.
no.
What did you think of that?
It's cool. It's a nice historic, interesting place to be. But
Would you love to do a paranormal investigation there?
It'd be cool to do. I don't think you're going to find anything. Is there stories? Is there like reports of people dying there or something?
There is a report.
Yes, there is a report that Rebecca's going to
couple
talk
reports.
about in the debate section
I
about a man that hung himself
that would
during the Great Chicago Fire.
That would leave an energy footprint behind. I mean, any place can be a haunted location, I guess, if you believe in the theory that hauntings are energy footprints left behind. I guess there is energy footprint left there, so I guess it could be haunted. But like, I grew up in Chicago proper and Chicago like burb right there on the state line. And I could tell you pretty much most places in Chicago that are the famous spots, and even some of like the low key spots, even around the burbs. I've never heard of the water tower having a ghost.
And your first
Interesting.
instinct is that it's probably not haunted.
It's probably not.
Okay, that's.
right.
I mean, that's fair to go by your instinct. Anything that stands out to you though about the water tower?
It's a fascinating place. It's Chicago history, right?
Yeah,
That's cool.
it's one of the few buildings to withstand the Great Chicago Fire.
right.
Yeah. And it's a symbol of old Chicago.
No, and I get that. That's
Yeah.
fine. And I appreciate what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But you would think, like, if there is one place in the world that I probably know the most paranormal ghost stories attached, it's Chicago and Chicago, like Chicago proper and Chicago land. Know most of them. I have never, in any of my research, listening to old Richard Crowe interviews on WGN radio, or anything that ever told me that the water tower was haunted. So I guess this would be news to me.
Is it a episode that you'd be interested in hearing?
Yeah. Pat, you guys could do an episode about like the Build-A-Bear store at Navy Pier.
Wait, you told him we're going to be doing that?
He just knew somehow.
Call it intuition. If you guys did a Build-A-Bear episode of the Navy Pier, I'd listen. So yes, I would listen regardless.
Throughout our time doing Ghostly, we've met a lot of great people. People that don't always fit into our episode schedule. And even when they do, we try to focus on the topic of the episode, and we don't really get a chance to get to know them as a person.
That's why we came up with the idea of Ghostly X. Ghostly X will come out on the weeks when there is no regular Ghostly episode.
And it'll have interviews with amazing people and listener feedback from previous episodes. We also can't wait to talk about the paranormal in the news.
We're very proud of this project, and we can't wait to share it with you.
Ghostly X is a Patreon exclusive. You can start listening now by going to ghostlypodcast.com and clicking on the Patreon link in the menu bar to become a patron and help support Ghostly by listening to our brand new show.
Pat's facts from a skeptic point of view. Pat's facts. He presents it all to you. Pat's facts.
All right. Now, this episode kind of goes along with our episode on the old Chicago cemetery. So if you haven't listened to that one, I would definitely advise you to, because there's a lot of shared history here. We're going to talk about a lot of the same factors that made them move the cemetery in the water tower.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So basically, Chicago wasn't envisioned to be this great big city when it was conceived. But because of the I&M Canal, Chicago has become this large city that it is.
It really has become kind of like the hub.
Now, you know who told me about the I&M Canal and its history, right?
No.
That guy right there, Mondo.
Mondo.
Yeah.
How did you learn about the history for the I&M Canal?
I just love Chicago history, and I mean, just as we lived near the I&M Canal, and so we would see the different barges coming and going, and then just going out to places that are near Chicago, like Starved Rock, along there, then you begin to realize that it was just basically a long trail or on the water for all these barges to move things from here all the way to the Mississippi. So then once they got there, all the way down to New Orleans.
Yeah, but I didn't realize how significant it was until you told me. Like, I knew what it was. I just didn't know what its meaning was to us.
Well, and just to say, too, like, I grew up not that close to it, right? So, again, in the Chicago area, but definitely more west and not south. And, I mean, we learned about, like, the reversing the river and all the things that I'm sure we're going to talk more about. But
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. But I, like, not being near it, not seeing it on a daily basis wasn't part of like my upbringing or learning about it. So that's interesting.
Well, yeah, I got to smell it every morning.
There you
I'm sure
go.
that was wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, when you hear of the old American explorers, a lot of them were looking for a waterway that would take them from the ocean into the Great Lakes, and they wanted something to connect everything to the Gulf of Mexico. This wasn't even possible until the creation of the I&M Canal. Here's an excerpt from Encyclopedia of Chicago.
Upon its completion in 1848, the Illinois and Michigan Canal, light bulb, joined the Chicago River at Bridgeport near Chicago with the Illinois River at LaSalle, 96 miles distant. The canal provided a direct water link between the Great Lakes and the Mississippi River and helped to shift the center of Midwest trade from St. Louis to Chicago. Bam! Take that, St. Louis!
And so, like, that still didn't really connect everything to me. But I remember the American explorers always wanting to find that passageway, and they thought the Mississippi was it, but it didn't connect totally to the Great Lakes.
Right. Yeah.
So, but then I started thinking about it even more. This meant that goods and services actually became cheaper in the Midwest and made Chicago the focal point of the U.S., if not the world, at that moment.
Wow. I mean, I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm not sure if we beat London, but I mean, maybe.
At that particular time, we did.
Okay.
Maybe not now, but at that particular time.
All right.
Chicago was known for its slaughterhouses, its railways, and now its shipping yards. It put everything together. I mean, everything came through Chicago. You're talking lumber. You're talking eventually steel. It became like everything for everybody.
Well, and I'm just going to put in a little bit of my career counselor in the Chicagoland area hat for a second. And it still is a transportation hub.
Yeah.
So logistics is something that is kind of like the mechanics, right, of getting goods and services everywhere. That is a huge industry in Chicago. If you're looking for jobs, trust me, they are hiring. I mean, a lot of places are, but they definitely are good paying jobs. But, really we are the hub for rail, air, water. I mean, all of the things.
And
sausages.
Yeah.
All here.
Most people also don't know that during the 1800s, especially like with the trains, if you were traveling from the East Coast to the West, or if you vice versa, you actually had to come to Chicago and deboard, typically for a day, and then you would reboard to get on another train that took you the rest of the way.
Yeah.
So you were forced to get off here at Chicago.
That's how we got
and
them.
Typically stay at a hotel.
Yeah, that's how we got them here.
Yeah.
Then they never leave.
They never leave.
Especially if they ran into H.H. Holmes.
Oh.
Chicago started to grow rapidly after this point into what was once considered the second largest city, hence the term Second City. When you guys hear of, the Second City comedy place, that's where they got their name, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of stories about that term, but I think that's probably the one.
Yeah, it was because we were the second largest city at that point. But Chicago's growth had some real difficult problems. Back then, the largest part of the city sat on what was sea level, which to me seemed kind of nice, right? Because then, you could walk directly into Lake Michigan to cool off on those hot summer days that we have there in Chicago, right? That's nice. Sea level. Oh, man. But if you really explore the time period, this was extremely bad. because there were no sewers. So waste would just be discarded into the streets. Think of like the Black Plague,
Yep.
and this is a horrible thing. It's beyond horrible. It's death. I mean, pretty much.
Yes.
Because Chicago was at sea level, anytime it would rain, the waste would then drift off into the Chicago River, which used to feed into Lake Michigan, meaning that there was not a good place to get drinking water. So back in those days, it was healthier for you to drink an adult beverage than it was for you to drink water.
I mean, that was true for a lot of history,
Yeah.
if you were in an urban setting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was really bad in Chicago because of it being sea level as well.
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
So chloria was a major problem standing in the way of how big Chicago could become. There were a lot of deaths associated with chloria, especially after a good rainfall. You would see the numbers just go up dramatically. So the people of Chicago came up with a plan. Well, they actually came up with a couple plans, but this is one of the plans. This plan had a couple of different phases. So they wanted to use the water from Lake Michigan, which is one of the largest bodies of fresh water. We're blessed with that in Chicago area.
Mhm.
We have some of the best water right now. So even though I'm talking about this, the water is really good here. But with Chicago River feeding into the Great Lakes, it made the first mile or so of water extremely contaminated. So they made these things called water cribs. Mondo, have you ever seen the water cribs?
Yeah, if you look out
Yeah.
into Lake Michigan, they're the little, almost lighthouses is what
Yeah.
they look like. Off
They,
in the
they look like
distance.
really fat lighthouses.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't think I knew what they were. I
Yeah.
just assumed they were lighthouses.
So a water crib is a structure built to house and protect offshore water intake to make it much safer to drink the water.
Interesting.
So Chicago built 6 of these cribs. Only 2 of them are still in use, though. All of these are 1 to 4 miles out into Lake Michigan. So at first they were all just 1 mile. Then they built a 2-mile one. And then they're like, no, we need a 4-mile one. And then, this is the crazy part. To connect these cribs to the shore, they built tunnels under Lake Michigan.
Unreal.
And they're still there. Like, they
I can't
didn't
even
take away the tunnels.
imagine.
I mean, most of them, you probably couldn't go through, but there are still some that you can.
Well, and here's the thing, too. If you haven't been to Chicago or seen Lake Michigan, and this, I always say this with people that when they first come to visit, I mean, it looks more like an ocean than a
It does.
lake.
Yeah.
I mean, I think when
can't
people
see
say
across it,
when they say
really.
Great Lake,
Yeah.
I mean, you're still thinking lake. No, so I can't even imagine how deep it is or how
It's a freshwater
to do
ocean.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. So this was no small undertaking because, I mean, think of all the man hours that would have to happen and how they would do it, the engineering. And then finally on land, they would build a pump house, which actually still is there today. It sits across the street from the water tower. But there was some problems with this, though. The water flow was very inconsistent. So what they needed was a huge standpipe to hold some of the water to make it a more even flow. And in the Great Chicago fashion, it couldn't just be a huge pipe coming from the ground. We had to make it into a castle. In fact, there is some speculation that the fast food place White Castle kind of got its idea from the water tower.
Kind of looks like it, the logo.
Yeah, I can
Yeah.
totally see that and the
Yeah.
look of the building.
So the Chicago Water Tower was built in 1869 by architect William W. Boyington. The actual standpipe is located inside this amazing structure, though. The water tower was originally at what was considered Chicago's northern edge, which is weird because now it's like in the middle.
That's true. Well, and like it was the outskirts of the city.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that was like, anything past that was no longer Chicago then. So anything north of that.
I can't comprehend that.
No,
don't-
neither can I.
Yeah.
It's constructed with Lamont limestone, Lamont being a town outside of Chicago with a huge quarry.
Have you been to Lamont?
Oh, yeah.
Have you been to the quarry?
I have.
Yeah?
Actually, yeah.
You drove down in there?
No.
No.
There's parts of it that go stretch over to Canal. And
Oh, okay. Yeah,
we
yeah.
actually went there fishing one time.
Oh, yeah. How was that? Catch anything?
No.
No.
Would you have eaten it had you? Okay.
Caught a 3-eyed fish. Not only would this help with the fresh drinking water, but it also would be used for firefighters to put out fires.
Wow.
Kind of a hint of what's to come here, you know. So I did some research into this William Boyington, and he was a fascinating man.
Okay.
He was born in Massachusetts and studied engineering and architecture in New York. So he began to work there, but then became a New York State legislator.
Oh.
And all of a sudden he picked up and left. And he moved to Chicago in 1853, right when Chicago was becoming the second city.
I wonder if there was like lady problems. That's my.
I think it was money. I think it was like, how much more can you build in New York at that time versus how much can you build in Chicago at this time?
Yeah, definite opportunity.
Definite.
Absolutely. So yeah, I think he went for the money.
All right.
So the water tower was only in place for 2 years when all hell broke loose, because 1871 was the Great Chicago Fire. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail about the Great Chicago Fire in case we ever want to do an episode on it.
Which I'm sure we will.
Which, yeah, I don't think would be a bad idea.
Mm-hmm.
But it demolished almost an entire emerging city in one night. That's all it took, one night, for almost everything to be gone.
Yeah.
There were a couple buildings that made it through that night. Do you know what they are, Armando?
Yeah, Water Tower.
Water Tower?
Was Holy Name Cathedral?
No.
Was not built yet. Okay. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have the pumping station, of course, which,
Right.
I mean, when I say the water tower, a lot of times I mean the pumping station,
I was just
too.
going to say, like, I put those together in my mind.
So St. Ignatius College Prep.
I don't know where that is.
It's in the city. It's in Chicago.
Well, I mean, yes.
And St. Michael's Church in Old Town.
Oh.
And a police constable cottage at 2121 North Hudson.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's it.
In addition, there were plenty of sections of Chicago on the west and south side that never got touched by the fire.
Yeah, it wasn't like the entire city.
Yeah,
burned
but I
down.
mean, it was like our downtown area.
Yeah, the money part, you know,
Right.
the business part.
Yeah, I believe the wind came from the southwest, so it just
Yeah.
Oh,
right to the
yeah,
lake.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and this kind of makes me think of our Peshtigo fire episode, because we definitely talk about, so if you want theories on what started the fire and what was going on, there's a lot of good theories. Go listen to the Peshtigo
Yeah.
episode, because we talk about that there.
Now, the water tower would likely not have survived without a firefighter named Frank Troutman. According to the Chicago Architecture Center, which I got a lot of this information from, actually.
Yeah, I have a friend who used to work
Yeah.
for them.
During the Great Fire, he covered the buildings in woolen blankets and discarded canvas sails soaked in lake water, protecting it from the cinders and flaming debris as the rest of the city burned.
I just figured it was because of the limestone.
Yeah. It
I
was
mean, I
because of
wonder
this
if that
guy.
helped though too. I mean, maybe
I mean, I'm
part
sure
of
it
the
didn't hurt.
structure. Yeah. Well, and that's amazing though. And just think about it. I mean, it makes sense that you would fight really hard to try to save the things that had water that you could use to put out the fire.
Yeah, not only to put out the fire, but also because, I mean, if you're going to exist there afterwards, you need drinking water. That's
True.
the first thing that you need.
Yeah,
In any
spare them
survival
from-
situation, that is the first thing that you need is water.
Spare them from further chances of disease.
Yeah,
absolutely,
right.
absolutely.
That's what
Yeah.
happens a lot of times when like a hurricane comes through or whatever. There's a lot of problems after
Right.
because of clean drinking water access.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that wasn't the only plan that Chicago had when it came to being at sea level. There were two other interesting things that happened at the same time the water tower was being planned. So they decided to raise up Chicago in the most literal sense I could say, not just raise, I mean, like lift up the city.
not figuratively.
Yeah,
literally.
They actually jacked up the buildings between 4 to 14 feet. So no longer at sea level then, because now you're up higher. The pictures of watching them do this are amazing. And actually, one of the things that surprised me the most is none of the buildings were hurt doing this.
Wow. They were able to.
I mean, until the fire.
Well, okay.
but they were able to jack them up without causing damage to the structure itself.
Crazy.
Yeah, I've heard of people that were eating dinner in the hotels that were being lifted, and they said their drinks they never spilled a drink, not a plate was dropped while they lifted them. So the people were actually dining at the same time that they were raising.
Wow, that is insane.
Wow.
That's crazy. And just to think there's like a city under the city.
Yeah.
You know, you never think about that, but yeah, but that wasn't the only thing. In 1887, they did one other thing that Rebecca kind of alluded to. It kind of made the water tower useless, though.
Okay.
Because they actually reversed the Chicago River. So it was no longer feeding into Lake Michigan that caused the chloria.
Wow.
So they reversed the river. Now, doing this was amazing. But all of the southern cities that were on the Mississippi were very upset by this idea. And I didn't think about other people. But imagine that all of Chicago's waste would travel all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico now.
Oh, I just read a newspaper article about this like a couple weeks ago.
Wow.
About how we're sending so much stuff down that way.
Oh, yeah. Giving everyone chloria.
Oh, it's like,
Yeah.
hashtag not our problem.
Exactly.
That's terrible.
It's terrible.
Just kidding.
But in fact, they actually took Chicago to court over this before they did it. And the verdict was about to be passed that Chicago couldn't do it. So Chicago decided to use the rule of saying sorry versus waiting for permission.
Nice.
And they did it. They did it actually, you know, the federal government was totally against it. Everybody was totally against it except for Chicago because we didn't want our waste. So they went ahead and did it.
Shame.
Yeah. After they did this, the water tower was not as useful. The pumping station still gets a lot of use, but they don't really need the huge standpipe anymore. But because a lot of Chicagoans thought this was the only building to survive the Great Chicago Fire, they just couldn't tear it down. And in 1906, the building was almost in ruins. The city paid for it to be restored. But in 1918 and in 1948, they wanted to actually move the structure. Since it was kind of useless but served as a symbol, they just wanted to move it down further and not on Michigan Avenue. I mean,
Prime real estate.
Think of how much that land is worth right there.
True.
So they wanted to move it, but they discovered both times that they couldn't move the building without destroying it completely. Because it's kind of, I mean, the structure, it's sound where it's at, but as soon as they would pick it up, it would crumble.
It's like anchored to the ground, and then those tubes are coming up from the ground. I'm sure kind of two independent structures that are helping hold it up.
Yeah. Have you ever been inside the water tower?
No.
Oh, I've been inside it. I did a tour of it when I was a kid.
Yeah, I think when I went past, they had a long line
back
then. And at that point in time, if I saw a long line, I wasn't going to get in it.
But who taught you otherwise?
We'll just call him Carswick. Name rhymes with Smatrick.
Yeah.
He told me that if you see a line, no longer how long, or a long line, you get in it.
Yeah.
Even if you don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Because it means something. And now you have a spot in that line.
And how has that served you to this day?
He was right. We ate the best barbecue that we ever had.
We didn't even know what we were in line for.
No.
But we got in
just
line
saw
and we
line
ate some
and
barbecue. Yeah.
I think if you've got the time, that is not a bad rule.
No.
Yeah.
You see a long line. There has to be people there for a reason.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose now it's probably for a COVID test, but that's okay.
But you might need it, though.
Get really
you might
long.
need that.
You might need it. It's okay.
In 2003, much of the pumping station, except the still functioning engine room, was converted to a live theater venue as part of the surrounding area's ongoing redevelopment into a museum and retail district. Similarly, the water tower was converted to use as an art gallery space for the city of Chicago. And it still stands to this day as a symbol of old Chicago.
Wow.
Yeah. Do you guys have anything to add?
That's a perfect symbol for Chicago. And I mean, you figure after the fire, that was the only thing that you really saw.
Yeah.
I mean, it was at least an inspiring sight.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, it was one of the only non-private buildings standing in that area.
Yeah, no, it was definitely. I read, like old news. I saw some old newspaper headlines, things like that, and I think they even put some like flags on it, different things that were like, it was like a still standing or I survived, we can survive. I mean, it was a call to the city, like, yes, we can. We're not down.
Yeah.
We're down, but we're not out. There you go.
Beacon of hope.
Beacon of hope.
Yeah. So what do you, when you go to the water tower, what do you think? Or when you have before?
I'm just usually taking it all in. It's just like you have to. That particular part of town, I mean, over there is just beautiful. And I mean, so.
Yeah. In that little parkway there.
Beautiful.
That's the Jane Burns Parkway, I believe.
Yeah. It's been a long time since I've been there, but back then we used to have the horse and carriage rides.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And they boarded.
That was
right
before
there.
cars were invented, right? But that's where you would get the horse and carriage rides. That was always nice, and it was really fitting too. You're in this old castle looking thing.
Yeah,
Which
it was.
It doesn't look like a castle that anyone could live in, or like only one or two people could live in. It's not like big,
Right?
But it has a castle-like structure.
But yet it doesn't. It's not a like if you see an old castle, like a real medieval castle. It's not that.
No, it's like
it's
like a German castle. Like it's got that German.
Yeah, more that, but it's still like it's not modern, but it's modern. I mean, in the art sense of the word, where it's definitely an homage to a castle, not meant to be a castle.
No,
it's meant to remind you of that. So, Anyways, I mean, though I disagree with Oscar Wilde. I just.
Yeah. Did you hear what Oscar Wilde said in the?
Yeah,
interview?
I did.
Yeah.
In the interview with there it was. Yeah.
I thought you were an Oscar Wilde fan.
Oh, I am. Oh, I love him. Yeah.
You just don't like what he has to say about the water tower.
Well, I mean, but thinking of it that way, I can kind of understand where it's like this upstart America, you know, I mean, not really at that point. We had been around for a little while, but still like we
were around for just almost 100 years.
Yeah, something like
years.
that. Which again, for Europe, not much at all. But that idea of like, okay, so you're building like weird buildings that like kind of look like are really, really old buildings. Okay. Like, it's kind of like when you see kids and they're like, oh my gosh, I saw somebody, I don't know if this is true, but I saw like one of those pictures on the social media that stirrup pants might be back, and those were not fun to wear back in the day. Yeah, I know, it's all right, but just but so I can understand his point of view for the building, but I think it looks cool. It's just such a different. I mean, the Chicago is known for its architecture, and it's just fun to have different kinds of buildings, and that's what we do. We don't make them matchy.
No, everything looks totally different.
Right? Yeah. I mean, and even to this day, I mean, have you seen the newest building by the same one that did the Aqua Tower, Jeannie Gang, it has like holes in it. That's like the new thing, like big, but like it's really pretty the way she did it for the winds to go through.
Oh, cool.
To keep it standing and all this. It's amazing.
Wow.
And it's all Water Tower is part of that.
All right. Well, at that, we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back with the debate.
Hello, ghostly listeners. Rebecca here. It's been a while since I've read you a creepy bedtime story, but it's time to bring this spine-tingling good time back. Join me on Patreon for exclusive new readings of classic ghost stories. Every month, I'll be reading frightening tales from my favorite authors. A perfect way to go to sleep with the sweetest, most terrifying dreams. Join Ghostly's new Patreon by visiting ghostlypodcast.com and clicking on Patreon on the menu bar so you don't miss any of my creepy bedtime stories. Talk to you soon.
All right, we're back. You ready for the debate, Rebecca?
I am ready for the debate.
Oh, one last thing I wanted to mention when we were talking about appearance
Yeah.
of the water tower. It kind of looks like an X-wing fighter standing up that's getting ready for
Oh,
to take
yeah,
off.
because it has that point at the top.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
the two sides, that's actually perfect. Like,
Yeah.
I think if you have not seen a picture of this place, yes. Yes, yes.
in yellow and stone.
Whitish, yeah, yellow stone.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Well, that's, yeah.
Probably why Lucas wanted to build the museum here first.
Yeah, but he's like, nope, that's already there. I can't.
All right. So we're going to start with the most popular ghost story for the
Okay.
Chicago Water Tower. And this is the one that I alluded to a little bit in the ghost story.
All right.
So according to Windy City Ghost, and you can find this story on a million websites, but this is the one I picked.
I've seen this one.
An unknown man who was operating the pumps during the Great Fire is someone who has stuck around long after the fire was finally extinguished. During the fire itself, the man was tirelessly pumping the water in hopes of that the fire department would extinguish the flames. As the flames inched closer towards the tower, the man realized that the flames were almost impossible to contain. Soon after, he went up to the upper level of the tower where he would commit suicide by hanging. Over the years, many residents passing through the tower would see the shadowy figure of a man in one of the top windows of the tower. It even got to a point where the police had to be called to the tower to investigate. No body or no one was ever discovered.
All right. Well, do you wanna go first, or you want me to go first, Mondo?
Yeah, you could go first.
Okay. So, I would like to say that this has been totally disproven, because first of all, the pipes they would pump themselves, so you wouldn't need someone there to pump them, and anybody working there would be at the pumping station across the street, because this was just really just for the pipe. Just for a big pipe. That was all that was there. And the engine and everything like that was in the pumping station across the street. So there was nobody reported hanging. There was no employee missing. There was nothing that any records can verify any of this information. And of course, there's no body, or no one for that matter was discovered, because it didn't happen.
All right.
All right.
Mondo, what do you think?
That's exactly what I was going to say. That
Yeah.
there was no body. That was
No
there,
body.
So I mean, unless he hanged himself and then he threw himself into the tube or something like that, and just
Yeah.
I don't know, but
Yeah.
I don't think he did that. So
All right.
So, so here's the thing. I absolutely agree with you as far as there is no evidence whatsoever of that particular story happening. Again, it is the most popular story that you will read on any website about the water tower being haunted. However, the stories about there being a shadowy figure up there,
Yes.
it doesn't, that shadowy figure does not have to be
someone that hung himself. Well, I
This
can
particular
explain
person.
that too. Because of the angles of the, because it looks like that X-Fighter kind of thing. So it starts off with a broad base and it tapers off as it goes up, right? So as it's doing that, there's windows all over the place in weird locations. I can totally see that looking like a shadow of a figure because of just the way that things are situated there.
Mhm.
And just the way that the sun comes in and the buildings blocking out a lot of the sunlight from that area because all the buildings around it tower it. I mean, this is only like 185 feet tall.
Right. It is not like a super tall skyscraper thing. But here's the other weird story. And again, I don't know how to like totally connect this to the water tower. But the concept of there being somebody that had been that was hanging up there. Okay. So when they after the fire, there was a lot of lawlessness.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a story that basically they gave permission to the police that if anyone was looting or like causing trouble, basically, that they could like shoot or hang them immediately, like on site.
Okay.
And it's weird because there's no like specific, there's not a lot of documentation of this happening except letters that were sent from people in the city to others around the country, whatever, the world that talk about this happening. So there are people that will tell the story that it wasn't somebody working there that got hung and is haunting it, but somebody that got caught being in there after the fire that was hung by the police. But there's no record.
Yeah, there's nothing to support that.
Of
We're
that
just speculating
happening.
at this point. And here's another thing too. The only reason to break into the water tower would be for shelter because there's nothing for them to steal in that thing. Especially at that time, it was literally a pipe coming from the ground.
Right.
I mean, like, what are you going to take?
Well, I mean, maybe you just needed shelter. I don't know.
That's
At
the only
that
thing I
time.
could think of would be shelter. But even then, it would be like a not great location for a shelter either. So,
Well, at that point, maybe there wasn't a lot of other shelter. But I just thought that was an interesting concept, though. Even if we
Yeah.
don't believe that this has to be, that this is a haunting in the water tower, it is a very like dark part of Chicago history that seems like conspicuously absent from official record, but yet there's these letters from people talking
Yeah.
about it happening. So I just thought that was kind of crazy. Now, the other one thing I will mention, and again, I am not gonna go into detail because I don't think that it's right to do because we don't have, like, I could not find a lot of backing evidence. There are two other stories of people.
is this still the first piece of
We are
evidence?
still talking.
Oh,
Again,
okay.
we're talking about who is
Okay.
the shadowy figure that people are
Okay.
seeing. There are two other stories of people committing suicide in the water tower.
Mhm.
This was later, a few years later. Two German men that somehow knew each other. Again, I'm not going to go into all the details or give their names
Mhm.
because I could find no backup evidence of those things happening. But there are stories of things potentially a little dark happening there. So I don't know. Okay. You guys go first with your ratings
All right.
because I'm thinking about it.
So you want me to go first? You want to go first, Mondo?
I'll go first.
Okay.
It's a 0.
It's a 0.
It's a
Wow.
0.
Yeah, I'm gonna go 10. No, I'm just kidding. I'm going 0 on this one too. Yeah, I definitely 0.
I'm gonna go 4 because I do think again, do I believe this particular exact story? I'm not sure. I don't think so. I don't think so, I should say. But there have been a number of reports of people seeing a man up there in the tower. That I like if someone somehow, if I saw it, I guess I maybe Anyways,
By the way, there's no platforms for anyone to stand on, like, as you go up higher. It is just a pipe, and the structure around it, there's nothing. There's like, you can't get up there.
well, remember too, when we think of it's actually a bigger building than we think. I mean, like when you look at it from above,
Yeah.
I mean, there is the pumping station too, and people, when they tell these stories,
Yeah.
may not be just referring to that one
Okay.
tower part. So,
Now, the pumping station would have things to steal in it then.
interesting.
But anyways,
Anyway,
I
all
still
right. So
don't
pretty
believe
low,
it.
pretty
Yeah.
low on this one.
Wait, the pumping station did have?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That changes everything.
It was an engine room. It changes everything.
I still give it a zero.
All right. So I found a couple of comments on hauntedplaces.com, an article about the water tower that are from actual people. I
Actual
hope.
people?
I hope
Not
it's
ghosts.
It's the internet, so I can't promise you.
Ghosts can go on the internet, though, right?
But maybe.
Mhm.
There are some movies that imply that. So the first one relates to the Hanging Man ghost.
Okay.
So I thought this would be kind of interesting. So this is from a commenter named Pete.
Pete. Thanks, Pete.
Okay. Quote, my first visit to the water tower was in 2011. I walked straight up to it for the first time. The first window I looked in, there was a hangman. Baggy worker pants and disheveled hair hanging in his face. I never heard the story before. Because this article, of course, told the story, right? The security guard inside said he didn't believe I'd seen anything. I went back outside confused, thinking it was a decoration, but nothing was in the window. So I'm guessing he's saying he looked in, he saw it, talked to the guy, and when he went back out and he looked back in, it was gone.
Okay. Well, I mean, the windows at the water tower are not windows you could see into.
You can look inside. I mean, maybe not at the top of the tower, but you can look inside.
I mean, not really. I mean, they're not like regular transparent glass. They're semi-transparent.
Well, this is 2011 because I remember back in the day looking inside it.
Oh, do you? Okay.
I do.
Oh, I
mean,
do not. I remember looking at the windows and they were like, I don't know, they looked like windows you'd put in like a shower or something like that, where it's all steamed up kind of looking.
Oh, well, I mean, maybe that. I don't remember that, but maybe, I don't know.
I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I've never looked that close in the windows to verify what you just said, but I don't know. It's just one guy telling another story of somebody hanging. And I don't know this guy.
You don't know Pete?
No. We don't know who wrote the story.
You want to meet Pete?
Wait.
No, I'm just kidding. We got him right here. It's Pete. No.
How you doing? I'm telling you, it was real. It was real. No, I don't think it was.
Okay.
I guess I will say, I feel like this seems like a little bit of a story where it could be that you look in and maybe he really did see a worker.
Maybe.
But then it was a little weird that the security guard was like, no, there's nobody working there.
You saw nothing. Forget about it. Forget about it.
That's totally what it sounds like.
Nope, I don't believe you saw anything.
Listen, kid, you didn't see anything. Got it?
That changes everything.
Doesn't it, though?
Now it makes sense.
Now it makes sense. So I gotta tell you, I think my rating is going up to like a 5.
Yeah, it reminds me of your Pizzarelli brother story.
Yeah, that was a scary moment in my life.
But anyways, so I'm going to give this one a 0.
Okay. Mondo?
She convinced me, man.
I'm telling you, it pushes it up then, isn't it? A little bit.
In a situation very similar. Some strange things happened. I was in a car accident late at night.
You were told to forget about it.
I was told to forget about it. I shouldn't even be talking about it right now, but we won't really get into that too much. So then there you go, right? But weird things happened. A couple hours later, the accident scene was as clean as could be. You couldn't tell that there was an accident. This guy plowed into a couple other cars. I mean, it was all gone. It was clean, like within 2 hours.
Yeah, but okay. Mafia people are not ghosts, though. You do know that, right?
No, we just say Chicago people. We don't say anything else.
They're not ghosts, though. I mean, just so you know. So you can still go low on this one if you think that the mafia
okay.
was
Imagine
there.
this is the story, though. Like, so you're there. You're just there. You're not expecting anything. You look in and you like see kind of a weird guy in baggy clothes, like hair hanging in his face. You're like, that's weird. So you go inside, and the security guards like.
I would think he was my friend. That's what I would think. Hell, I think I know that guy, you know?
Yeah, and the security guard was like, "No, I didn't. There's nobody in there. I didn't see anything. You didn't see anything." And then you leave, and you look back in there, and it's gone. That'd be a little weird. It's a little weird story. I'm not. We don't know. We don't know what it
if
is, but it's a
actually
little bit of.
person?
It could be. Is it a homeless guy living in there? I don't know. Sorry,
unhomed,
unhoused.
yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm getting better, guys. But you know what I mean?
Yeah, it could have been that the security guard was letting a homeless person stay there. I'm not going to say unhoused, but a homeless person stay there.
And he was like, "You didn't see anything,"
Yeah.
and then he's like, "Joke."
Exactly, and then he did, and then the guy went out there and he didn't see nothing. So it's explained.
All
0.
right. So it's 0 for Pat.
I'll give it a 4.
Give it
A
a 4.
4?
A 4. Yep. I'm giving
Whoa.
it a 5. I'm giving it a 5.
Whoa.
Again,
5
there's
all day?
something 5 all day. Something's happening.
All right.
All right, here we go. Evidence number 3. The other comment, this was a little bit more of an overall comment about ghosts in the building. Okay.
Like a Yelp review?
No, well, this is in the same for the same article.
Okay.
Commenter Eli.
Mm.
So, well, this is a great story, referring to the hanging man story. But there are many more spirits in that place. I am saying more than 50.
Whoa.
I saw them and met a few while working there one night. The cleaning lady was the only one to ensure me, I'm assuming he means assure me, that what I saw wasn't insane. This was around 2011 or 2012.
Yeah, I think that these are all the homeless people staying in there, and the security guard was letting them stay there because I don't know. This just seems what's up with 2011.
Well, this doesn't say that he necessarily saw them.
he knew all these
but
spirits.
he said he saw them, I guess, and met a few.
Yeah,
And he just
I think they're in his head. That's where I think they are. I don't know, Eli. Come on.
What do you think, Mondo?
That's a lot of ghosts.
It's a lot of that's
For
the
a very,
part.
very small place.
It's a lot of ghosts. Yeah.
It would have been completely packed, I'm sure, in there. You know,
Yeah.
it's like a single
Standing room only.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So,
I think the only thing that kind of is a little interesting to me is that the cleaning lady was like, yeah. But then again, if this guy comes up to you and is like, there's like 50 ghosts in this place. I keep meeting him and talking to him. I think you might be like, yep, totally. Yep.
So yeah, I'm gonna go 0 on this one again.
Okay.
I'm going to drop the E off of his name.
Mm.
Oh, you're gonna go
Eli.
Lee?
Just lie. There was a man who worked downtown late at night. And then one day he experienced an awful fright. His name was Eli, and he felt that he was right when he said, there's 50 ghosts that haunt the tower. There must be 50 ghosts that haunt the tower.
Lie.
Lie.
Oh, 0.
No, actually, you're taking the E and moving it.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've given this one like a 3. Like I want to give it more. I want to, but yeah. All right. So we've got one more.
Mm-hmm.
There was another type of incident that happened in the
Lady
19
in White. Huh?
No,
Oh, okay.
Lady in White. It happened in the 1980s. Again, I saw the story in a few places, but I'm going to quote from themonde.com.
Because it sounds fancy.
It does sound fancy. Quote, the most unexplainable incident occurred in the 1980s. When the water towers briefly closed for renovation, the Chicago Fire Department continuously received phone calls from the decrepit building. What could normally be chalked up to a malfunction or a prank could not. The phone service from the building had been shut off during renovations. To this day, no one knows who did the calling or why, only that something was calling when calling was impossible.
All right. So nobody's ever lived in this building. even when you said the cleaning lady in the last one, I'm trying to think of what they were cleaning
Well,
in there.
there have to be clean. There's people
Dusting
there.
maybe and
yeah,
stuff?
you
Yeah.
got to and there's people there maintaining the equipment and working and doing stuff.
It's non-functioning anymore.
Well, they do tours in
Yeah,
it.
they
I
do
mean, like
tours,
it's
so
a
there are
place.
those people,
It's a
yeah.
thing.
And there was some renovation done in 1984.
Mm-hmm. So this checks
So
out.
That
check,
part
check.
checks out. So the Chicago Fire Department.
They're not
see
lying.
phone calls from. Yeah, I'm just thinking that there was something wrong with the phone lines at that moment because, I mean, this doesn't say ghosts don't typically call you on the phone.
Right. I don't know. There's some sort of, I don't know, weird problem because this isn't like internet phone. This isn't, I don't know. I mean, all of us are at an age where we remember, phones back in the day, but this isn't like party line phones from way, way back in the day when they would, you'd pick it up and you're sharing a line with somebody,
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Well, it could have been, I mean, yeah. Well, I had an incident when I was younger around this same time where my phone just kept ringing and you pick it up and it was dial tone. And it was like, it was a weird ring too. It was like a sustained ring.
So you were either haunted or you had a secret crush secret crush. There it is.
It sounded weird. It was like, it wasn't even.
It was aliens?
No, it was like a sustained ring. It was like not just like, it was like a, and it was really weird sounding. And my phone was messed up. So that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking the fire department or the phones in these places were just messed up.
I don't know. They couldn't seem to explain it.
Or, also they are renovating this thing. They might be touching the phone line.
I know they turned it off.
Yeah, but they probably turned it off at the base of the phone, not in the wires.
I don't know. This is the best, guys, because Pat and I are debating, and Mondo is just like a
taking notes.
jury.
Yeah.
He's taking notes, so he's ready.
All right, what do you got?
Well, I was thinking, this was in the 80s.
Yeah.
For one. So we didn't have satellite phones as
No.
much as we do
Right.
now. But we relied on things like switch panels
Mm-hmm.
back then, I believe.
We're going to
Still in the
trust you on this.
80s. We were just moving on to fiber optics and things like that. So I, too, experienced a weird ring.
Yeah.
And I know what
Yeah.
you're talking about.
Yeah, that weird sustained ring. Yeah.
And, it's like your phone suddenly is like...
Yeah, exactly.
You're like, what? That's...
Yeah. And you're like, hello? Oh, nobody's there. Yeah.
So I've gotten that same thing, but I'd be willing to say, it's basically like connecting two wires together
Mm-hmm.
shortly. And I mean, you can get a little jolt that would send some signal to them. So I just think it's probably that simple. Like you said,
Yeah.
they were doing renovations. So somebody probably...
Yeah, or
But
drilled
if
into something.
If it happened once,
Mhm.
that would be one thing. But it happened a lot. Like it wasn't.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. That
Like
they're
it
drilling
was-
into this one spot and they don't know that it's causing this problem, so they keep doing it.
But I mean, like over a series of days.
Well,
Sure.
you could have that one guy that likes to horse around at work and is like, hey, man, watch this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And look at them across the street at the fire department over there.
You're pointing at us.
Exactly.
Man. You have no idea. I think the service is cut off.
Yeah. I totally believe that could
All
happen.
right. So what's your rating then?
I'm going to go 0 on this one. Sorry, Rebecca.
That's all right, Mondo. How about you?
Yeah, I'm man, this is weird, man. I gotta go with another 0. I'm sorry.
Wow,
This
you're
is one of the
going
most
low.
haunted spots in Chicago.
It is rated as such.
Yeah.
And yeah, for me, I give this one a 4. It's just, I do think there's too many possibilities of mechanical or, wires or whatever. I mean, maybe, but again, also too, ghosts, they can mess with electrical stuff, but like how often nothing else electrical was being messed
Yeah.
with. Like it just seems like an oddly specific thing. It's weird.
Well, it's
I'm
not
not
that
saying
they're-
it's not weird, but
It's not that they're messing with the electrics. They're drilling into something or cutting into something that can cause this. I don't know.
yeah, I don't know. All right. Well,
All right. So, hey, before we move on to the overall rating part, I just want to see if Mondo's got a song for us.
All around the water tower, buildings went up like a fuse. While all the firemen came and went, the limestone saved those two. Yeah.
Oh, a little Hendrix there, huh?
It could have been done the Dylan way, too.
Oh, yeah. But no, you were doing it Hendrix, though. I
That one
was feeling the Hendrix in that. Yeah,
That was
good.
awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank
you
you.
never disappoint. Oh my
Always
gosh.
have a song, man. All right. So, Rebecca, what is your overall rating?
My overall rating is a 4.
4. This is one of the most haunted places
I
in
know.
Chicago.
It was, I mean, it was super interesting to learn about this place and its story. But I was disappointed by the amount of evidence I could find.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Mondo, where are you at?
Yeah, just that 4.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to go 0 on the whole thing because I haven't given anything higher than a 0. So I like to average out my thing. But that brings us to our closing argument. This is our last chance to convince you to vote our way. We are each given 1 minute of uninterrupted time. We will time each other on our cell phones to keep Rebecca honest.
Hey.
And Rebecca will be timing both me and Mondo.
Yeah, because I'm the most honest one.
Your phone is the most honest one. Rebecca, do you want to go first then?
Sure.
All right. I have 1 minute on the clock. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right. And go.
So I was so excited to do this episode, and I am very glad we did it. I love learning about the water tower. However, it is, I don't know. So, like, do I think that there could be some spirits in there? I mean, my gosh, this thing has been around longer than a lot of other buildings in Chicago. It is possible there are some shadow figures in there that people might see on occasion. You know, maybe that guy's seen something in the window. I mean, maybe. It's a maybe. But do I think it's more haunted than most places, older buildings are? No, not necessarily, I gotta say. And I do, I should say I was disappointed that I wasn't able to find more hard evidence of this. So I think there's maybe a little bit of haunting there, but I don't know if I'm going to call it a most haunted.
Wow. You had like 8 seconds left.
Yeah.
All right. Mondo, you want to go next?
Or you want to hear Pat first?
Sure, I'll go next.
Okay.
All right. And go.
So, yeah, I was really surprised that they had, that there really wasn't that much more that was dug up about the water tower. Surprising that most of the stories were very similar to the other one. They're all about a hanging person. I'm sure, with its location, with the fire being out there, there's so many different haunted stories that could be associated with that, with the water tower buildings. And it's surprising to hear that there really isn't, especially with considering it was like the last place, one of the last places standing after the Chicago fire where, it was such a big disaster and so many people died. I will say, though, in closing that, I mean, the mobster thing kind of got me, I mean, maybe it's something like that. And I mean, over time, those spirits had to move on. They got to forget about it, even in the afterlife, so it's a possibility. That's my one and only thing. Other than that, not haunted.
It could be a union thing.
There you go.
All right.
You ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah, I got nothing really to say because I think that this episode is totally been debunked there. Because there was no hanging man, so all the hanging man stuff is just, just whatever it is that they saw. I mean, there's illusions we all see in everyday life. We see shadows and we try to make sense of these shadows, and sometimes we go into these weird directions, but nothing haunted, and that's it.
Wow. Oh, wow. You only less than 30 seconds that you took there.
Yeah, exactly. Because I didn't need anything more than that.
Okay.
So I want to thank everyone so much for listening. Please share us with your friends and family, as word of mouth is our best advertisement. Remember to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already done so. I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't.
Yeah.
So Mondo, what's going on in your life?
Right now?
Yeah.
I'm getting reacquainted with Old Man Winter.
Old Man Winter.
Oh, yeah. How's the, do you have a snowblower or anything?
Yes, I've been getting really acquainted with it. Not as bad as the people on the East Coast. So,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I'm thankful for
Well,
that.
no, we got this week coming up. We're going to see
Yeah.
what happens. There's some stuff on the potential forecast.
Oh, okay.
But anyways, but yeah, so we'll see. But yes, we're thinking of you guys out there with the 30 inches. I mean, I don't know. Hopefully we're not going
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
But how is family life? You got some new family?
I do. I'm
Yeah.
a grandpa.
You're a grandpa.
Yep. Grando.
Brando.
Is that what we're gonna? Is that the name you've chosen?
Aw.
No, very exciting. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Well, there is actually a lot going on.
I was just gonna say, what am I talking about?
On February 25th and on February 26th, we are going to be, we are co-producing a podcast festival
Yeah.
called Dark Matters over at Side Street Studio in Elgin, one of our favorite places.
No, it's Dark Matters, Winter Tales.
Yeah. And so we're really excited about that. Ghostly will be there the entire weekend. We have a live show planned Friday
the 25th at
I think 8:30 or 8 o'clock, something like that.
Yep. Following one of our favorite
Yeah.
other podcasters.
From Bob After Dark.
Yeah. And then Saturday is going to be an amazing day full of true crime podcast, other paranormally podcasting. We're going to have a paranormal investigator there that you all
Neil.
have heard before on Ghostly. Neil's
Yeah.
going to be there with Graveside Paranormal. They're going to do a live investigation of the art studio that we're going to be in.
Yeah, and you could see it and be part of it.
Yeah, it's going to be super exciting. And Jacob Mayfield and Shane Mayfield are going to be there doing tarot readings and palm readings.
Wait. How much are these readings going to cost me then?
Nothing.
Nothing.
It's all included. $10
What?
for both days
Wait,
for all of these
it would
shows
cost
and
more
all
than-
of these things.
It would cost more than $10 to get a reading from them.
Yes. Oh yeah. And or to get to go to Graveside Paranormal and like go on one of their tours or there's actually they're going to do a workshop on how to do paranormal investigating.
So you could become a paranormal investigator.
Exactly.
Wow.
So exciting. So much going on. So, if you go to social media, any of our social medias, there's information.
Yeah.
Go to Side Street Studio Arts. It's going to be great.
Yeah, and we are also doing something with our friend Jack Chavez on March 6th. He's having a paranormal convention in the Archer Avenue area.
Yeah, we all know how scary that is.
And we're looking really forward to that. And we will have details about that over on Ghostly Podcast Facebook page.
Absolutely.
If you're interested in going. And I will have that in the email newsletter shortly. So, you can just subscribe to our email list and you'll receive notification about
That's
that.
actually the best way to keep up with all of our events and
It is. It's in
everything
one
going
place.
on. And we really don't send out that many emails. We try to keep it to one per episode for the most part, and we just kind of keep you updated.
Yeah. So we will be talking about another most haunted location in the next episode. We're going to be going to Dallas this time, and we're going to be talking about the Screaming Bridge.
That sounds scary.
I hope there's screaming and bridges in this one.
We will see.
And that comes out on February 16th. And for those that are our patrons on Patreon, our next episode of Ghostly X will be with Mr. Bob Anderson of Bob After Dark, and you can hear that on February 7th.
Yeah, and if you are not a Patreon member and you'd like to listen to our awesome episode with Bob Anderson and his interview, you can go to ghostlypodcast.com, click on Patreon. Give us, I mean, again, lots of different levels, but for just $5 a month, you can get 2 extra Ghostly episodes with all sorts of fun interviews and news of the paranormal and all the fun things that we love to talk about.
Yeah, and so we do have to do some shout outs to some of our VIP patrons. So we have Shayla,
Cindy,
Nicole,
Darnay,
Jessica,
Sarah,
Linda,
Alice,
Austin,
Hope,
and Candy.
All right.
So thank you guys for making Ghostly what it is today. And until next time, stay ghostly.
Bye.